So before I actually go into the proper technical review of the pen, I really just want to say how great this pen is, the Parker Sonnet, and I genuinely think it's probably one of the best fountain pens that I have used or owned. Now, the reason being is that it just works. It works well and it never ever fails. Every time I do an exam, this is the pen I'll always go to. I have tons of other fountain pens. I have fountain pens with larger capacities. I have different size nib fountain pens. I have pens that flex more than this one. I have pens that are smoother, blah, 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 blah. I will always go to this pen when I do an exam. I have done pretty much every single one of my exams with this pen. After doing other exams with other Parkers or pilots, I always resort back to this pen. Reason being, this pen just works. No railroading, no hard starts. This pen will easily last a 2 to 3 hour exam. It's comfortable, the weight is spot on for me, the grip is amazing, it doesn't get all oily after a while, and even if it does, it's not that bad. I just think that this is probably one of the best fountain pens that I have ever used and owned. And if I do sound very, very positive towards this pen in the video, that is probably why. I'll always use this pen for exams and to write with. I just think that this is an amazing pen. Let's get into the video. Alright then, let's get into the technical part of the review, but first a little bit of history. So this pen was gifted to me by my grandpa after I was using the Pilot 78G for about 6 months, and upon getting it, it's now been my everyday carry pen for the past year and a half now to 2 years, and I think it is held up pretty well. However, I wasn't all that surprised that I was actually gifted it upon doing a bit of research, because as it turns out, in most big department stores that don't really specialize in pens, the main brand of pens that you're going to get are both Lamy and Parker. Sometimes you might stumble upon some Watermans and maybe a few Hugo Boss pens, but Pilots and Lamys are the pens that you're going to get, especially in Australia. So the Parker Sonnet is probably one of the most common pens that you'll get, and that's not a bad thing because they've been in production since 1992, and because of that, because it's been around for 25 years now, they've pretty much weeded out any issues that they've had with this pen. And you can see that because everything just works on this pen. I'll get around to that later when I review the nib and the feed and all that, but any issues with this pen have been resolved. There were a few feed issues on earlier pens, I believe, but they have now been resolved and this pen just works. The only downside with having a pen that's been around for so long is that there are a lot of fakes. Classic case number one will be the Balwar 388, which is a Parker Sonnet knockoff, which you can buy for about $3 off eBay. This pen, the price is about $160 to upwards of $300. The reason being is that the cheaper pens will come with stainless steel nibs, and the more expensive pens will come with 18 karat gold nibs. Now this pen originally came with a stainless steel nib, but I dropped that because I was a bit clumsy at the time, and then I chose to replace that with an 18 karat gold nib. Okay, let's have a look at some of the specs of the pen. So capped, it will be 13.4 centimeters long. Unposted, it will be 12.3, and posted, it will be 14.7 centimeters. So it's long enough to be written unposted, and if you like it posted, it becomes a pretty nice length pen. Now, whether or not you write with it posted or unposted, it is really going to depend on how heavy you like your pens, because posted, this pen weighs 28 grams, and uncapped, it would be 18 grams. And as I said before, it's comfortable to write with it either way. So if you like a lighter pen, you can write with it unposted and it will be very comfortable. But me personally, I'd rather a heavier pen, and I just post pens usually just because it's easier to put the cap here and not lose it. I will always write with this posted, and it is a very comfortable weight. It's not overly heavy, but it's nice to have some weight on the pen, and there's enough weight on the pen to make this pen write pretty much under its own weight, which I love in a fountain pen. If we have a look at the body, if you have a look close up, the body is made of brushed stainless steel, and because of that, any scratches that you do get should be pretty well masked by the texture of the pen. Now, because it is stainless steel, it is a very hard surface, so it is fairly resistant to scratches, but there are a few scratches on here, small ones probably from keys or whatever, and it is pretty well camouflaged. As well as that, the gold accents, yes, they can get scratched, but so far there are only a few little scratches, and this has been everyday carry for the past year and a half, and they are holding up very well. As well as that, this pen is built very, very nicely. The threads and everything, they are very sturdy. The cap is very strong. There's no way that I feel that I'm going to break this pen by accident, by sitting on it or whatever. It is a very sturdy and very well made pen. So if we have a look at the grip is sort of medium thickness. It's about 11 mils in diameter and tapers down in the middle to about 9.5 millimeters. In terms of holding it, I think it is a very comfortable grip, and the grip is probably one of the reasons why I use this in exams so much. I can do 2+ hour exams written and use this pen, and there is no way in hell that my wrist is going to get tired using this grip. And in terms of other grips that I have, it's probably one of the most comfortable. The only one that's probably as comfortable as this grip is probably the Pilot Prera, which has a much thicker grip, but this one will do it quite well. So the other thing that I want to talk about is the converter. You will get a converter standard with this pen. It's one of Parker's plunge converters, so you just move this up and down, and it will move the piston up and down and draw up ink. Okay, let's talk about the reason why this pen has become my everyday carry pen for the past year and a half. The biggest reason of all has to be the nib. This is an almost perfect nib if I was to describe it in just a few words. Now, the reason being is it pretty much has 0 issues, and I really mean 0 issues. This pen during exams or just in any situation, it will never start dry, and it will never run dry, and even during 2+ hour exams, this pen will never skip. As well as that, it has a very, very smooth nib, and it is of medium wetness, and when you add all that together, it means that even on really low quality paper, this pen will not bleed through the paper unless you're just asking for it. Really, this pen on low quality paper, and that's something that you will always write on during exams, it will work perfectly. I know some of my cheaper pens. Even some of the pilots, especially the 78G, they used to tear up exam paper when doing side strokes because it was a very scratchy nib that was just not suited to using low quality paper. This pen, however, does it well. So this pen has a this pen had a stainless steel nib when I bought it, and because I dropped it, I had to replace it with an 18 karat gold nib. Well, I chose to. I could have done stainless steel, but I went full 18 karat gold, and this one is a European medium, and because it's a European medium, it is a tad thicker than what would be considered a Japanese medium, but honestly, that's not a bad thing, because that makes it very smooth. Well, it allows it to be a lot smoother than, say, a finer nib, and that's something that you want when using crappy paper. Now, this pen doesn't flex all that much. That's pretty much the only pure gripe that I have with this pen. I said before that it didn't railroad. Yes, this pen doesn't railroad because it doesn't really flex all that much. Is that really a bad thing? Not really, because you don't really need a pen to flex and do amazing writing when in exams. The stainless steel nib was very, very hard. This nib is also hard, but there is a little bit of flex in this nib, but not all that much. It will pretty much flex upwards and the tines won't spread out. So in terms of line variation, you won't get all that much. Okay, what do I like about this pen? So, pros. It is very, very reliable, which, well, it's been my everyday carry pen. I've witnessed that firsthand. Very few scratches. It does not railroad. This is a pen that you can always trust in exams. It flows really well, and it's very, very, very comfortable to hold, either with it posted or unposted. It really doesn't matter. It only depends on how heavy you like your pens to determine whether you like it posted or not. I really love this pen, and I just wish I hadn't dropped it because the nib, they're very expensive. Which drags me into my first point about what I don't like about this pen. When I broke it, it was a very, very hard pen to replace the nib on. When you undo the feed, and yes, you have to twist it, there are these sort of hooks. Let me focus in on it. There are these sort of hooks which hold the feed onto the nib, and my god, they are bloody difficult to replace. I don't know if it was just my nib or whatever, but it was a bloody hard nib to replace. It took about 10-15 minutes, and that's just something that I don't like about that pen. The only good thing about that is, because it's clipped in, it is aligned in the middle, and you don't have to fiddle around with it, unlike other pens. Another thing that I don't like about this pen is that the 18 karat gold nib is pretty stiff, but that's not an isolated thing. A lot of 18 karat gold nibs are very stiff pens, but I just wish I could squeeze a little bit more line variation into this pen.